If you follow this channel, you probably know that Sever is actually my favorite core skill in the game. And I intend on playing Sever this season too. I already played it in season 1, and let's see my theory crafting on how I think it would go in season 3. Hi guys, this is Master Necromancer Zeiss here. I'm gonna talk about the Sever build I'm going to play, and let's see what it's about. Let's talk leveling first. I put together here some leveling builds based on what I have, and it's going to be with okay, the defensive aspects you can swap, of course, especially the protector, because the higher the item power, the more barrier the aspect will generate. So we have protecting aspect, the bubble thing, aspect of the protector, the barrier thing, disobedience. You can actually also use juggernaut here, and you also have the aspect of might. Why the aspect of might? Because this build actually utilizes basic skill a lot, and we'll get additional damage reduction right for this. I forgot to modify those things here, but they're not really that important. Mostly focus on armor, resistances early on. If you don't get resistances, you can place them on the rings, right? And you can also get it here, like 20 resistance to all elements by sacrificing skeletal warriors. Well, initially, instead of bone storm, I would actually go with rise skeleton, maybe until like I'm tanky enough, or until I get those defensive aspects, right? So the skeletons can tank for me. A really cool thing, actually. Maybe that's usually until level 30 or something, or until we can get to Bone Storm, right? Offensive aspects. These are the untimely death, really important because Blood Surge can actually heal us, and this drastically increases its low damage. Wind Striker on the boots will probably not have aspect of slaughter at the time, and it's better to keep it for ancestral boots. Grasping Veins on the amulet for more critical strike chance and damage. What else? Okay, sacrificial aspect here or blood bait, it doesn't really matter where you place it, or you can have it on your gloves. That's basically is it aspect wise. If you don't have the Ring of Sacrilegious in sacred form yet, you can use the one, where was it, basic skill, yeah, this one, aspect of the expectant. Attacking enemies with basic skill increases damage of your next core skill cast within 5 seconds. Or if you get dropped this consuming a corpse, yeah, this one, consuming a corpse increases damage of your next core skill, its cadaverous aspect. That will also work. And I guess that's it, at least aspect wise. About the construct, I have here focus fire with arcing, efficacy to increase the critical strike chance, and mockery to tank when we do no longer use the skeletons for this. Reconstruct here to heal and increase our damage, like because of the untimely death. It will allow us to heal over 100% either with potions, so we don't have to use the potions to increase our damage, we can use them just for healing. And there's also Fortify, I will explain why in a bit. And the Safeguard support, which is for additional damage reduction. Let's talk about skill tree. Remember this Fortify, right? So Hemorrhage actually fortifies quite well, but to get fortified in full, it's kinda rare, right? And we're gonna use here Blood Surge while leveling with Supernatural Blood Surge until we get Fortify Stone. And wait, then we can safely respect this and get paranormal blood surge, especially if we already have the drain vitality passive. Heal with flesh, of course. This is undying energy, imperfectly balanced, quite good for blood surge, right? Lucky hit on this is kinda low, but it's mostly for consuming and restoring resource and increasing the damage. Corpse explosion, right? It's quite powerful when leveling, so if you have it on your pants or if you can afford yourself to put like a few extra points there, especially early on, it's really powerful, but I've noticed it doesn't necessarily need those points, right? The other important things here are Iron Maiden with enhanced and abhorrent, and then we can focus on Death's Embrace. I'm just gonna say that imperfectly balanced should be the last thing to, those two things are the last thing you gonna put on your build, right? Death's Embrace, then amplified damage, and as soon as you can get Iron Maiden, do that. As soon as you can get Corpse Tendrils, and especially with Blighted Corpse Tendrils, do that. Blood Orbs really cool for healing, so we can increase the damage with Untimely Death, and not having to use again the potions for increasing the damage. The important things here are the Tides of Blood passive and the Coalesce Blood passive, especially the Coalesce Blood. And this thing, we can go with just 1 point, and of course this transfusion, just 1 point. As soon as you can get Bone Storm, do that, especially if you're not very well defended. Hence I recommended using a shield, and even if all your gear is crap, which is usually the starting season scenario, you can rely on your shield and Bone Storm for really good defenses. And as soon as you can get Ratma Vigor, do that. Ratma's Vigor, do that. Really cool thing. It's guaranteed overpower. And with this combined Paranormal Blood Surge, you kind of overpower quite often, which is really cool for blood builds. Right. So we have Inspiring Leader for attack speed. Standalone. We don't use minions here, no Bone Prison either, which is 6 minions, really cool. And Memento Mori when we get rid of the skeletons, right? That's skill wise. If you keep using this build after level 50, here we have right, these nodes, Essence here, because Essence is the glyph which we are going to use when we respect to Sever. And this is Bone Graft here for the resource problem that Blood Surge has, and for life and armor here, right? And probably at this point you can safely respect to Sever, especially if you have these boots in the sacred form, because that's kind of the build defining unique here. And the other thing could be X-Files. Okay, Zafals. Right, we should be pronounced Zafals, I'm guessing. Like, you don't necessarily say xylophone, right? You say xylophone, so this should be like Zafal or something. Like the demon, who I think they burnt in Margrave, which is south from Kiovashat. Anyway, that's lore stuff. Let's talk about the build. Obviously, Ring of Sacrilegious Soul here. No Necromancer could probably go without this. I have here the Torturous Aspect on the helmet. Disobedience on the chest. Juggernaut on the pants. You can of course swap those. I'm kind of relying on armor here, because we're gonna use Protect Governing Stone for the barrier, which would enable us to actually not use a shield but a focus, but kind of a defensive focus. I'm gonna talk about this in a bit. Right, the offensive aspects definitely put Decay on the gloves, because it's a drop only aspect, and getting those best in slot gloves, it's relatively easy. while at the same time the weapon is something you'll probably change a lot, and I would recommend to put say grasping veins there, because you can also get it from the collections, right? And aspect of the damned on the amulet to drastically increase our damage. We're gonna use both curses. And blighted aspect on the focus, or of course we can swap these with the weapon, doesn't matter which is on which, as because they are obtainable, right, by completing dungeons. That's, I guess, gear wise here. There's a focus fire with arcing and dusk, really important because our build would heavily rely on crowd control, and dusk really helps with this because it can prevent monsters' attacks. They can be interrupted, and because this build relies a lot on lucky hits, this could be really cool. And especially with arcing, as we know, focus fire is arcing like crazy. Efficacy to increase the critical strike damage of this. Protect, like I said, for the barrier. Fortify, we're not going to use Reap to fortify. Safeguard, damage reduction because we don't have a shield, and duration, really important. I wouldn't rely on those unique stones, not at all. I mean, even if you have them, it's up to you where you place them, right? Let's talk skills. So that's Sever, of course, Reap, both curses, so that's Quad Corruption, 2 corpse, 2 curse, and also these 2 skills here, Reap and Sever. The sacrifices, Reapers for shadow damage, Cold Mages for increased damage to vulnerable, or we can use Essence, up to you, because Sever can make things vulnerable, Corpse Tendrils can make things vulnerable, and if we focus on vulnerable, I have a separate variant here for vulnerable. You can check this. It's kinda similar, just one glyph changed and one stone changed, right? With breaking here. There's also Uniques and Uber Uniques version, if you want to check it out. I wouldn't really rely on the Uber Uniques, like not at all. What do we have here on the golems? Of course, sacrifice Iron Golem for more critical strike damage. So the important thing here is that Sever is not shadow damage over time, it's shadow damage. Same goes for Reap, and also the same goes for the important passive here, Shadow Blight. It's not a shadow skill, it's over time, but it can crit. So critical strike is kind of really important thing here with this build, and lucky hit chance as well. Let's see on the gear as affixes: total armor, maximum life, maximum essence, and we can use some kind of resistance here that we need, or points to decrepify, because decrepify also provides additional damage reduction. Chest armor, total armor, damage reduction from close, damage reduction, maximum life. We can get, instead of this, damage reduction from shadow, damage affected by shadow damage over time, but this usually takes time to kick in, and Sever is a close combat build. It can work for ranged, but it's mostly close combat, especially because of the Reap combination, and also the returning Reaper, which revolves around the character. Same goes for the pants. Again, we can get, instead of close, damage reduction for enemies affected by shadow damage over time. Gloves, relatively easy to get, ranks to Sever, of course. Lucky hit chance to restore resource. We can also have this on the focus and get here critical strike damage. Shadow damage over time, because this will increase the damage of Shadow Blight, and also the pool which Sever spawns because of the boots, right? Lucky hit chance. We can also get critical strike chance, like I said. Amulet, movement speed, essence cost reduction, damage reduction or total armor. But if you use Juggernaut here, I would recommend to have damage reduction because it also works for elemental damage, not just physical. And damage reduction is actually calculated after armor and after resistances. Ranks to Gloom passive, or it can also work with Terror. And this is really important. On the offhand, we can't make compromises really, except maybe with just one thing. Damage reduction from affected by shadow damage over time enemies. Damage reduction while fortified, because we're gonna fortify with the construct, not with reap this time. When I played it, I fortified with reap. There's a passive which can do that when you generate corpses, but we're not going to use this this time. Critical strike chance or lucky hit, depending on what you have on the gloves here, and essence cost reduction because the build is really resource intensive. Though Reap in close combat can generate tremendous amounts of essence when it's reaping every enemy which is around you, which is why this build, yet another reason why this build is better for close combat. Not only because the Reaper revolves around the character when it returns, and it also deals damage. It's kinda less, but it's more optimal this way. That's gear wise. Let's talk skill tree. Reap, of course, with Acolyte's Reap. We're not using Initiate's Reap because Decrepify will kill the enemies when they're injured. This thing is the last thing you wanna get here. The imperfectly balanced, of course, Hue with Fresh, really important, no matter that we use Reap to also generate corpses. Corpses are really important for this build and pretty much every Necromancer build. Sever, of course, here with Paranormal to make them vulnerable. We're not going to use this one because we're not using minions with this. At least I'm not. Feel free to disagree, right? Corpse Explosion with Blighted Corpse Explosion to further reduce the damage from enemies affected by it. 1 point here, Grim Harvest. That's not usually a problem because of Reap. It generates resource quite nicely with close enemies. Fueled by that to increase the damage. Death's Embrace because we're mostly gonna do close combat. Iron Maiden with healing here, with Abhorrent Iron Maiden, not with this one. Amplify damage. Decrepify with Horrid Decrepify. We're not going to use Abhorrent Decrepify, which could reduce our cooldown, because we're gonna get cooldown reduction from the focus and potentially this ring. And we can easily spam Corpse Tendrils. And the Sacrilegious Sacrilegious Soul, I'm sorry, reminded me of a song of a band, never mind, which has a song which is called like this. And basically we can constantly spam Tendrils, and like I said, the build heavily relies on crowd control. Decrepify, Tendrils, it's kind of insane. Okay, moving on. Tendrils with Plagued to make enemies vulnerable. Initially we can set more points on this one, but the most important are the other three. Gloom, the most important one. Terror, really cool. And I would like to mention something about Terror. When Corpse Tendrils actually affects enemies, then we can further slow them with Decrepify, because when Corpse Tendrils initially slows them and then stuns them, they are no longer slowed. So that's kinda tricky. Really high IPM is required for this build, and especially if we don't have the Ring of Sacrilegious Soul yet. Okay, moving on. We can use 2 points here on Crippling Darkness, because 1 second it's not really enough. I was using this one before with Reap to fortify, but now we don't have to do that anymore. Of course, Inspiring Leader for attack speed, damage reduction here from standalone, and we don't use minions, and Memento Mori to further increase the sacrifices bonuses, and of course Shadow Blight. These are also the sacrifices, I already talked about them, right? So Reapers, Cold, for vulnerable, or Essence, up to you. And we can also sacrifice the golems here for more critical strike damage, right? Paragon board. I'm gonna use darkness here. We can also use essence, and with a slight change because it's essence is a dexterity glyph. Moving on here with the this is wither, right? With the glyph abyssal. It doesn't require its bonus is not like for every fight dexterity, so we only need to get 25 or 27 in this case, right? That's 10, 15, and these are 14. It's actually yeah, I mean you get the idea. It's more than enough, right? We can also get the intelligence here instead of the willpower, depending on what we need to get the rare nodes bonuses. There are a couple of other places where we can also do this. Same goes here. We can get it this way if we need more. Wait, what? No, it was actually not here. Alright, there it is. We can get more intelligence here or the willpower. There are a couple of more places like this. Say this is willpower doesn't make any difference, but we can get like willpower dexterity or willpower intelligence. Same goes here. Right. Then I'm going to move from Wither to really important Scent of Death. Probably no Necromancer can go without this board. We're gonna pick everything all over the place. We're gonna get shadow resistance from here and from here, so we don't really need a shadow resistance ring. We're gonna get poison and fire here, right? In any case, we can also reduce this damage to get poison resistance and armor on the next board, which is Flesh Eater. And this is with essence, so it doesn't really matter like where you put those, right? Here actually it does matter, so we can put extra intelligence points in here if we're really willing to sacrifice anything else, like these here, like some of them, especially if we played vulnerable version, right? We can also try to sacrifice the critical strike here. Probably gonna get more increased shadow damage instead of it, right? Same goes here for the healthy enemies, right? You can get more shadow like this, like this, like this, like this, right? Depending on need. Or we can, of course, easily remove this. Let's sacrifice, for example, more damage somewhere, so we can easily get this poison resistance and armor here. Let's see, there is somewhere else where we can do this, yeah, like this armor, because we're gonna get more armor here. We can also sacrifice this damage. I hope this makes sense, especially this is usually done for higher nightmare dungeons or vaults where survivability is of utmost importance, because it doesn't really matter if you one-shot enemies or one-shot enemies. You have to be able to take their hits, if it makes sense. So slightly increasing the damage will most probably also result in one-shotting the enemies. And especially in higher tiers, you're probably not gonna one-shot them at all. So hope that makes sense. That's the Paragon boards generally, but last we get Desecration, and this is Bone Graft. Right. There's also vulnerable version here with I think this is Bloodbath. Yeah, Bloodbath. And we can get Exploit here instead of Desecration. Though the thing with Desecration is that the boots here generate desecrated ground. And we're gonna be usually standing in this desecrated ground. So I would rather recommend this Paragon board version with Desecrate. Especially having in mind this will be close combat. Well, that's my theory for Sever during Season 3. I'm probably gonna farm a bit more Forgotten Souls, as it's quite the scarce resource this season for me, because I made like a couple characters already. And then I'm gonna play this. So let me know what you guys think about this build. You can also check the unique version and the uber unique version, but like I said, I wouldn't really count on those. And yeah, let me know what you think, and feel free to give me a like and a sub if you want to follow more of what I do, and especially when I'm going to play this build. I hope you like this. I really do, and can't wait to actually play it. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you on the next one. Take care.